All right, let me take you to the eNCA Money Desk now, and Devin Murugan joining me. So we're talking business confidence, Devin, and I see that it's at an, 2 decades low.
It's not what we need if we want to create jobs in the country.
Yeah.
So let's start right there. Business confidence slumping back to 2-decade lows. Weak business sentiment holds back investment and economic growth, and it spells bad news for job creation efforts. So in a moment, you'll see that slide showing you that the RMB Business Confidence Index slipping from 26 points to 18 points in the first 3 months of 2020. What are business executives saying? Well, they are concerned about persistent electricity cuts, further bailouts of state-owned enterprises, and then the impact of the coronavirus on local and international demand. Now, there's also this long-term frustration over government's slow implementation of much-needed growth-enhancing reforms. That graphic there tells you how we've slid from the early 2000s. Confidence just hasn't gained traction as we find ourselves in 2020. Well, RMB economist Mpho Molopyane joins me now for more on this latest confidence index. Mpho, thanks indeed for coming in. I mean, it just seems that we cannot get out of the spectrum of weak confidence. And as I said, if we don't have improved sentiments, businesses don't throw money into the economy, and we still have a job crisis. Yeah. Why is it that we are stuck in the spectrum?
Yeah, so as you correctly pointed, that it's the lack of implementation. I think the problems of the South African economy have been dissected, they've been diagnosed. The Treasury even released a growth paper last year detailing what exactly needs to be done. And yet we're very slow to implement. And I think the continued deterioration in the business confidence to levels of 18, which essentially shows you that more than 8 out of 10 business people find prevailing business conditions unsatisfactory, and is also, signaling an economy in recession. So as you indicated that it's at historical lows, 2-decade lows. We didn't even reach these levels during the global financial crisis, and it just speaks to the frustration around the lack of implementation on the policies and proposals that have already been put on the table.
I asked that because we can in a moment talk about the electricity power cuts, the uncertainty around power supply. We can talk about the coronavirus that's come in and also added another degree of uncertainty. But at the end of the day, the president meets business delegates all so often, whether it's tennis or the union buildings. We have the investment summits. A press release is then issued saying that, look, we've got an understanding between government and business. But that is out of sync with the numbers that we are seeing. You say it's an implementation question.
Yeah, totally. There's definitely, some disconnect between the press releases, what's discussed, behind boardroom doors, and what we're seeing in the actual numbers. But even if we also think about the electricity constraint, yeah, for instance, it's a major issue. The president told us at SONA that they're going to regulate and legislate self-producing, right? Allowing mining and manufacturing companies to self-produce to alleviate the constraint on Eskom overall. We still haven't heard anything on NESA, and electricity is such a huge constraint, and it's so important for the economy. So, like for instance, we're saying that the impact of coronavirus is likely to be contained in the first half of the year. Yep. But even as the global economy rebounds from that impact, South Africa is going to struggle because we don't have electricity. How are we going to produce if we don't have electricity? So going back to the investment summit, for instance, why would anybody set up a manufacturing plant here, which is investment, which is employment opportunities, when there's no electricity?
Just going back on the coronavirus point as I wrap up here, just explain to me very quickly, because I looked at the BCI index and I saw whether it's builders or manufacturers, those arrows are pointing downward on the sentiment. How does a coronavirus situation affect typically the manufacturing sector?
Yeah, so it's actually quite ranging impact that is going to have on manufacturers. So firstly, it's our imports. So remember that some of the manufacturers import the intermediate goods, which they then use to produce products which they then also export. So we're getting a delay on the import side, so which then affects their production schedules. And there's also decreasing demand from the global economy. So which means we're going to be exporting less. So we're going to see a huge knock on export, and then we're going to see that impact filter through the whole economy, because then you're not moving goods. So your transport sector is going to be hit as well. Tourism is going to be hit as well.
And of course, the workers on the floor itself are not as productive. Mpho, thanks very much indeed for coming. That's RMB economist Mpho Molopyane there, joining us about that BCI confidence index. Let's take a quick look to see what the markets have been up to. The local market has swung into the negative this afternoon. That big share, Sasol, continues to take a beating, dipping 15% into the red today alone. We spoke how connected that share is with the oil price. So that offsetting some of the positive movements we are seeing from retailers and banks. The red JSE today. Commodities, well, the gold remains strong at $1,667 or thereabout. But as I said, that struggling oil price, it just can't gain traction upwards since Monday's crash. And that was brought about by the fallout between oil producers Russia and Saudi Arabia. So it stands now at $36.13 a barrel, just from overnight levels. That's about 5% down. The rand is back above 16 rand to the US dollar as more cases of coronavirus were confirmed earlier in the day, and South Africa, in particular, rather Eskom, intensifying that load shedding to stage 4. When that happens, you see the local currency taking a hit. So it's 16 rand 5 cents now to the US dollar.